Well, it's been a long time that I wanted to do this. I talked about it, I thought about it, and I spoke with people that are very close to me, and just got to the point when I said it. Maybe this is the right time to do it, and this kind of conversations that I'm just willing to have with myself, with you. It is something that I think I personally needed, and humbly, I do believe that you need it as well too, because I do think that every single one of us is carrying a museum, a collection of things inside. And those things could be anything. They could be, moments, they could be songs, they could be plane tickets, they could be shelves, they could be insignificant things to others, but they could be something that for these people, they could be chapters of their entire lives. And I think that's important. Ladies and gentlemen, I am Daniel, and this is the things we keep. It is the idea of a very, very long conversation divided in a lot of different chapters that I will just really willing to have with you. And not because I have a lot of very important things to say, or because I do think that there is something extraordinary in everything that I say. It's quite the opposite. The older I get, and the more I get to understand how little I know about life in general, and how much I will be wanting to discover about myself and everything else that surrounds me. And something that I always find very hard to understand is why some moments in our lives are so easy to forget, like instantly, like you could barely remember what you had for lunch yesterday, and why some other moments are so hard to forget. They seem that they absolutely refuse to leave us. And I've been quite fascinated by that, because actually, not by, you might think that I'm talking about memories. I'm not, it's not what amazes me. It's not why memories are bouncing back into our routine. It's just, I'm just fascinated by what memories could actually do to time, because I think that that's truly one of the most important things that we can actually talk about it. I don't know. Have you ever listened to a song that you haven't heard in about 20 years? Have you ever opened a drawer and you saw a photograph that you haven't looked at for the last 15 or 10, 15 years? And suddenly, you were not in that room anymore. You were completely somewhere else in the past. And you started to leave again that memory. You could almost sense, the presence of a person that it's in the present is not there with you. You could smell that room. You could hear that song, and that version of yourself, because we're talking about the younger version of you, is just it's just incredible that happens. Because whenever that happens, we are living through a memory, and sometimes we percept the reality completely different. Neuroscientists are actually saying that our brain has a very particular way of dealing with memories, if you want to. It's not that we have our memories as small little memory slots into a brain, and whenever we want to access them, we just access, and we just remember that thing. It doesn't work that way. Apparently, when we when we remember something, the brain is trying to build that experience, and is trying to do it through colliding together a lot of images and sounds and meanings and emotions, and the brain is trying to put that together for you in order to relive that moment. And maybe that's why memories, they don't really just remind us about the past. I think sometimes, which is super cool, they actually let us visit that moment in time again, and they give us the possibility to somehow to visit those places in time again. And there's nothing more beautiful than that, because at the end of the day, time is the only thing that we can't stop. There is no way we can buy more of it. We can't ask time to slow down. You will never be able to tell time to wait for you. And yet, every now and then, that song, that photograph, has a very particular way of making time not matter anymore for a little while. But that little while feels like time really slows down. It really feels like you're traveling in time as well too. So, you know, this maybe is one of the strongest reasons that this podcast exists, because it's basically the sum of my desire to bring back memories and the necessity of the whole, the need that we have to be able to remember. Because it's not just us that we remember things, and it's not just us that we want to have good memories, because we never have just good memories. But it's the fact that we, as human beings, we do need memories, because they basically define whoever we are as speaking. So the podcast itself, it's not to talk about the past. It's just I really want to, as much as I can, to understand why some memories, they just simply refuse to leave us. Then if I look at this studio of mine, I've gathered so many things, with guitars, like all of these instruments, and lots of music, and concert tickets, vinyls. I have everything, and then and I am just really thinking about it when I'm just roaming with just the idea of finding something, even if I'm not looking for anything in the studio, whatever little thing I lay my eyes on, it's going to remind me of a different version of myself, who I was at that moment in time when that concert happened, who I was when I played that guitar and I used that riff into a song that later on someone on the other side of the world was actually just dancing on it. And that's pretty unbelievable if you're thinking about it. Because I do think that I actually pretty funny is that I don't I barely remember when I bought that, or when I barely remember the date when I was at that concert. I don't remember when I finished writing a song or something. It's just I remember exactly who I was when that happened. And again, that's pretty incredible, because it's not the item, it's not the object itself, it is the path that opens once you look at it and you access that memory. And you know that I'm I'm involved in fashion, if you want to say that, because I do create the very powerful and a beautiful clothing line. I love writing music. I love playing FIFA with my friends. I love motorcycles. I love getting on the track with my cars. I love traveling. I absolutely adore spending time with my family. All of these worlds together, they taught me that the the least that people will ever remember, it's the value of a thing that they own, like the price of that guitar behind me. I really don't remember how much I paid for my phone, how much I paid for a pair of shoes or anything. It's what it's what it made me feel when I have it. When I had it, I'm sorry. It's the moment that I wore that leather jacket when I met that person. I listened to that song while I was with that person. The soundtrack of that moment was the music, the song that I'm listening to. The photograph itself, it's actually the living proof that that moment existed and it happened. And maybe that's why we never throw these things away, because it's not about keeping an object. It's just simply about protecting a memory. So I don't really believe that we are, or personally, that I've been collecting records, for example, or jackets, or cars, or cameras, or guitars. I don't think I do that. I have a feeling that I am just collecting moments, and believe it or not, I strongly believe that that happens with every single one of us, because we are not really depending on the items that we're collecting. We don't. We are depending on the idea of knowing that we have them and we kept them. And that leads me to a little story. I was a little bit younger, and when I was young, I was not thinking about memories like at all. I wasn't wondering how my brain was working. Like, believe me, I was not. I was just a simple young boy doing exactly what all of the young boys my age were doing at that moment. We're fooling around, playing soccer in the neighborhood, being naughty with all of the young ladies in our neighborhood, and going to school and being a rebel, and always dealing with that moment of our childhood without thinking about it. what actually those moments will become for me one day. Because when you're living those moments, you never think about it, that those moments will become an important, very important memory for you one day to access and to think about your life and think about how not ordinary your life is and how, yes, extraordinary everything that you've been through actually was. And one of those moments, because that's what I wanted to just share with you. One of those moments was when I think it was somewhere in the 90s, or 1990 or 1991. I was walking into a record shop. I was so young, and I couldn't tell you what day it was. I couldn't tell you what I was wearing, what I was dressed with. I don't remember the weather outside because memory has a very funny way of working. I mean, it quietly just erases all of the things that you don't need to know, that they would not create a feeling. They will not push that little button inside of you to really make you wonder. You just access that memory, you go through, you just remember that amazing moment when you just walked into an old record shop. And some of you might know exactly how the old record shops were. You know, there was so much information everywhere, all those huge posters, the music bouncing from everywhere, so many cassettes and CDs and vinyls. It was beautiful. It was an ocean of information. I think at that moment I knew probably a 0.00.5 of what music really was. And I was listening to a little bit of everything, and I was trying to understand what that music is doing to me. And funny, because there was no algorithm back then to tell you what to listen to. You got no suggestion from anywhere telling you that this is cool, this is viral, this has been so good, this is no good for you. There's no playlist, no headphones working, waiting for you in a corner that you can actually put them on and listen to it. You had to go into the record store. You had to choose the actual disc, and you had to look at it, and you have to try to understand what you're saying. Not the easiest thing to do. And don't get me wrong, I mean, now we have so much, like everything happens so fast, like the quantity of music that we have every day is just absolutely incredible. And it makes me wonder, only because I don't mind have all this music so quick. What makes me wonder is that if we do have access, and if we have so much and so little time, how easy is for us to actually forget about it? Because we have everything, it's right here, and we have it everywhere around us. You open up your phone, you have an information, a visual one, an audio one, it's right there, and it's just telling you something about someone or something. And it's so fast. And in that record shop, you had to look around. You had to take your time. You had to walk through the shelves and let your eyes, and most of the time, your imagination, you had to make it work. Because whatever you will see on an album cover will tell you something. There will be a message somewhere. And that's something that I miss. Not the album covers, not walking through the shop, just that moment when your imagination, that need for the imagination to work. Because today I really think that we lacking in that. There is a little bit of a lack of imagination a little bit around us. People don't imagine things anymore. I mean, we don't because we don't need to. You need anything, you get your phone, you ask your phone to do something for you, to give you an answer to something. So you don't imagine anymore what it could be. You don't have more than one answer for one question. And that, I think, it just throws us on a simple, direct, and super quick way to lose the wondering. What if? Well, what if it's not white? What if it's not water? What if it's not drum and bass? What if that song will go into a vibe that, what if that movie will not have that ending? What if that guitar will now produce that sound that I'm expecting, that I know it's going to produce? And that wondering, that missing that moment of imagining something happening in a different way, it just worries me. Because back then, when I was buying an album, like a music album, wasn't something you did every day. When you were buying a CD, first of all, you saved for it. You did. It was an event. It was something you planned. You thought about it. You even talked to your friends about it. You wanted to buy a Metallica album, and your friend will tell you, "Oh, wait a second, the Sepultura just came out, and I think it's a little stronger." So you had to choose in between the two, because you had no access to like a cloud somewhere that could just let you listen to everything. You had to choose which one to buy, because that will be the thing that you will be listening to, and that will become yours. The more you thought about it, the more you actually, that you got closer to the day when you walked into that record store with the ideas pretty clear about you were about to buy. And the fact is that, you know, after that beautiful day when you bought that musical adventure, when you went home with it, you never just listened to it once and forgot about it. That never happened. It never happened to me. I mean, if you bought a disc, like a vinyl, like a CD, like a cassette, like whatever, you listen to it for like weeks, sometimes for months. Funny thing, English definitely was not my language that I was born with, and I'm able to communicate and speak today because I had the privilege to be around a lot of people speaking this language. But back then, I had no idea what English was. It was just something that you picked up from movies. It was just something you heard in the music. So the funny part of buying a music album was that you're listening to songs. They sounded beautifully, absolutely beautiful, but you had no idea what they were saying. You had no possible idea what the correct pronunciation of the words were. And you were just like mumbling, you know? Now you're just mumbling about everything, and everything made so much sense. Put that together, actually, one step back. When you were mumbling and dancing, everything made sense to you. And it was because you were imagining what it was happening, what they were trying to I don't know, to tell us with that song. Think about, take a Michael Jackson song, and think about when it was the first time that I heard, I don't know, Smooth Criminal. easy to say Smooth Criminal. It's pretty much sounding okay in every kind of language. You can say it. You can say it. But think about the other words. It was all about, it was all about creating that atmosphere because it sounded so cool and it was so engaging and everything. And it was pretty unbelievable. But you were doing that because, again, that little version of you was creating a moment through your imagination. And you learned those lyrics that were broken. You learned them as like that. That's a funny thing. It's a funny parenthesis if you want to. Even today, just the other day, I was with my wife listening to I think it was a Roxette song. Yeah, I think it was It Must Have Been Love, and we could never pronounce those words back when we were, I don't know, 12. We had no idea what that was. And until today, you have, now that you speak that language, it's so easy to understand how broken your language was and how broken those words that you thought they were the correct ones for the movie, they sound like. And that simply means that back then you did listen to the music and you enjoyed listening to the music. Every tiny little sound, every pose, every breath of the actual singer, you never realizing, I think you were never realizing, I didn't. I think I never realized that at that moment in time when I was so young, music started to become part of me in my life. And it just started to shape me and whoever I will become one day. So back in that record shop, I remember I was walking through, I can almost, now that I'm talking to you, I can almost feel the smell, a very heavy smell inside of that record store. And I remember I was walking through the shelves and there was one CD that just caught my attention bad, like really bad. It was just kind of like calling me from the shelf. It was I remember it was a complete black CD, like a black cover. And it had a single red rose on top of it. And it looked so mysterious and elegant. I remember the title. It was Violator by the Depeche Mode. Wow. I picked it up and I think I stared at it for minutes, literally. Remember, it was a black background with a simple rose. Some of you will definitely know that. I couldn't take my eyes off it. And I turned around and I read everything on it. 90% of what I was reading made no sense to me. I probably knew words like heart, love, and little music terms, if you want to. I read everything on that back cover. I looked at everything, the names and everything, and I remember that I saw the names of some cities, and it was Milan, it was New York, and most definitely it was London. I never thought that me reading that CD will stay with me for all this time. Because look, I am talking to you about this memory. And I never thought that that's going to be possible. And funny, isn't it? Because look, I'm right here and I'm actually talking about it. Life never tells you when something important is happening. You will never have the privilege having a voice in the back of your head saying, hey, pay attention. It's quite of an important moment for you. It's going to remind you one day of how important that particular choice was. Life, it's much quieter than that. It has this very smooth way of hiding all of the important moments and to turn them into singular, very ordinary kind of happenings. And you only get to recognize those moments only a long time after. The moment that you actually understand that they never left you, it's when you remember. It's the moment when somehow your brain reminds you about that moment. And I took that record home. I took that CD. I bought it. I bought it. And I took it home, and I remember that I had this little stupid CD player, literally little, like super little. If you remember, it was really. If I am thinking about today how we were listening to music back then, I don't know how we did it, but I did it, and the headphones were. Oh my God, you do remember those little players. And so I remember I was in my hallway at home, and I put on the CD for the first time after I bought it. And I don't know if you remember, but the first song on the Violator, it's The World in My Eyes. There's so much to say about that song, and still, the way that the song starts with that very rhythmic bass line, with that synthesizer, that synth that punches through constantly, super violent and super. I was tripping. I was traveling. My eyes weren't open anymore. I was everywhere. I was traveling. I did listen to that CD for hours. And I remember that I had to even change the batteries to my CD player because I ran out of battery. And I kept listening to that music, and this is funny. So at the moment, I was a kid. My family didn't have a car, so I knew what cars are, but I didn't own one, so I didn't know what the feeling of having a car is. So what I'm trying to say is that day I was listening to one of the songs on the album, and I was sitting on a pillow on my hallway on the ground, and I started driving. Think about it. I was driving. So my imagination somehow put that little version of me inside of a car and said, drive. This is going to be cool. And God, that was so cool. I drove everywhere. I drove in the neighborhood where the kids were playing football. I drove to the beach. I drove through the forest. I drove downtown. I was driving a red car, then I was driving a black car. Then it was just me tripping. It was maybe one of the most incredible moments that, just told me at that moment that music is just something that will become my favorite sound. that when the music starts, it just there's something inside of me and inside my brain that just makes everything really enjoyable. And it's it's not about the violator, because music in general does that. Whoever says that I'm not listening to music, I don't like music, in my opinion, unfortunately, it's a very empty person. Music is something that is with you no matter what. The good moments, the bad moments. Whenever something happens or doesn't, music is there. And music has this very funny way of saying, forget about everything else for a while. Just enjoy this. And there are not a lot of things in the world that do that. Some of you will say drugs. Really? I wouldn't compare this to that. Even so, I'm one of the few people in the world probably that I'm not really able to compare it, because I don't know what the other thing is. But I really believe that music is one of those things that could actually ask time to slow down. And it, music really can make everything a bit more enjoyable. Even today, just coming home, like the first thing that I did when I got home, I asked Alexa to play something weird. 30 something years after I just walked into that record store, I've asked an imaginary entity to play music for me. God, the world became such a beautiful place. I will never make anything in these conversations we have sound like it was better then, what is better now. There's no way to compare. I think that's a little bit stupid to do that. There were so many beautiful things back then, and there are so many beautiful things today. We just need to find the beauty. We need to find the beauty. What I was trying to probably say is that music, as a lot of different other forms of art, they are just, art in general. It could be fashion, it could be painting, it could be music, it could be movies, it could be a lot of things. And I really believe that art in general doesn't really belong to the creators. It doesn't. If I'm thinking about an amazing painting that someone did hundreds of years ago, the most enjoyable part of that moment that creates that painting, it's for whoever has the privilege to have it and to enjoy it. Same thing with music. Music, it doesn't, like that form of art, it doesn't really belong to whoever made it in a way. It belongs to the listener. So whenever you listen to music, you definitely acknowledge the quality and the talent of the people that created and wrote that song. And you pay tribute to that by just listening to it. But you are the one that you make that song stronger day by day. It's just something that, because I always get to talk about music, and I just might just repeat myself, but it's part of my life, and obviously I do that. This is one thing that great art will always do. It will not tell you what to think. A painting will not tell you what to think. A good song will not tell you what to think. A movie, a great piece of clothing will not tell you what to think. It's just gonna tell you how to feel. It's just gonna make you feel. It's gonna give you permission to feel, to imagine, to just go somewhere inside of yourself and find something or someone that is long gone. You're gonna, when you feel something that deeply, it stays with you, and it stays with you for a very long time, and that simply means that it builds a memory, and that simply means that somewhere in the future, at some point, you will be able to look back at that moment and relive that amazing moment because of that memory you had. I repeat, it could be a bad memory as well too. It's still a memory, and it still makes everything, like, think about it. We change, you change, everyone changes, our dreams change, the cities, the places where we're living in, they change constantly. Somehow those feelings, and I'm talking about the feelings that it got out of our imaginations and out of our memories, they never change. They're just waiting patiently for the next time when you access that memory, just to bounce back and to make you again go through those feelings, maybe in a different way, but still having them. And this is this is pretty incredible if you're thinking about it, because we should not, you know, when I'm thinking about that day that I bought the violator, Violator did nothing to me in all these 30 years. Is that I've started to write music because of the Depeche Mode Violator now? It's not because it's not that I love the Depeche Mode because I bought the Violator in 1991. No. The Violator was just a way for me to understand that my life will become meaningful with music in it. And Violator for me now is just a beautiful memory. And whenever I feel lost, whenever I have to deal with something that is not pleasant, whenever I'm happy, whenever I'm driving fast, as my wife would say, that album is there. It's just, it's in the DNA of me being the rebel that I used to be at that point in time, which will never be that anymore, because the music might remind you about who you were, but it's not going to change who you are today, and it's not going to determine you to do or to just take different decisions in your daily routine. Absolutely not. And as I get older, I started noticing something, and whenever people are talking about music, they do refer to music in a very strange way, I thought, which is not strange anymore now that I'm thinking about it. You know, they almost never talk about music. They do refer to music, but they talk about moments. Think about it. If someone says, "Oh, this was playing when I met my wife." Someone else will say, "Oh, my father used to play this every Sunday morning." Or, "Oh, this reminds me of my first car." Or the very well-known cliche that says, "Oh, this is our song." It is the moment when you acknowledge that music becomes an address. Music becomes the place where that memory it's going to be. And maybe that's why we never get old of listening to old records. Because you're not searching for a song, you're not searching for a person. I am just visiting a younger version of myself. And I am just looking at that guy while I listen to that song. And I'm looking at that guy that had no idea what life had planned for him. And when I'm listening to The Violator and I look back to the younger me, I never knew that I am just going to be making clothing for people, that I'm going to dress people for over 3 decades now. 30 years of making clothes for people. That's, if someone would tell me that when I was 14, I would say that probably he's out of his mind, because I was dreaming about being an actor or just traveling the world, and I was dreaming about flying to the moon. I had no idea what that meant, but I wanted to do that because I heard it's pretty cool. But that guy, he had no idea that music will become such a big part of his life. He had no idea that today he will sit in a music studio talking with an imaginary friend on the other side of the camera, and yet talking to someone on the other side of the world that somehow will relate to this conversation. I think he just knew somehow, maybe. He just knew at that point that music mattered. I actually wish I could go back and tell him a few things. I would tell him, keep that record, The Violator. Just keep it. Don't throw it away. Don't give it to anyone. Just keep it. Because one day it will remind you of who you were when life started to become complicated. And it was before responsibilities, it was before deadlines, and it was before worrying about anything. It was before watching the news. Keep it. Keep it, because one day you will need to remember this man again. Yes, a young man, but you should, and you have to be able to remember that person. And maybe that's all what we're trying to do our entire lives, you know. We're not trying to, I don't think we're trying to hold into the past. I think personally, I'm trying to not lose contact with the person that I used to be. And the more I think about it, I realize that this podcast, at the end of the day, it's not about memories. It isn't. It's in a kind, strange way, this is about identity. Because when we remember something, we're not just remembering what happened. We definitely remember who we were at the moment that thing happened. And sometimes, maybe that's the only thing we need. We need to remember who we were in the past. Because life has a very weird way of laying layers on top of us. We become adults by the minute, and we become busy, angry, responsible. We need to do things. We need to be places. And we spend so much time becoming who we need to be, then sometimes we just simply forget about who we really are. And when something unexpected happens, like a song playing while you're shopping in a supermarket, that happened to you. You open that box and you see that photograph of like 35 years ago, and suddenly, without any kind of warning, you're right there facing that boy again. You're looking at that person again, that younger you. And if you're actually thinking about it, that person back in time, the younger self, really believed that you could do anything. You really believed that anything is possible. I was thinking about going to the moon. Really. I dreamed about things that made no sense. And I really think that one of the simplest things for us towards of a little bit of a better living is to try to meet that younger version of ourselves a little bit more often. And not because he was better back then, because he wasn't. Every point of our life has its own beauty. I wouldn't trade the person that I am today for the 13-year-old version of myself. I wouldn't do that. I've lived. I have made mistakes. I loved. I cried. I laughed. I've been silly and naughty and disrespectful sometimes, and I've done everything. And those experiences, they shaped me into the person that I am today. But every now and then, it would be so cool to have that version of the younger me right next to me. And I think about it. If I will ask him, how are you? He's going to probably look at me and he's going to ask me, are you still trying to become someone that you dreamt about it? And I wouldn't know how to answer to that, because I don't know about you, but sometimes the question, are we still becoming the person that we hoped we would become? That question, it kind of makes me smile. Because sometimes when I'm thinking about that question, sometimes I'm uncomfortable, because somewhere along the way, life has asked me to make compromises. I think you did as well. And the compromises were necessary, most of them. Hard to avoid. And one of the things that I like asking myself, it's what have I kept? And don't get me wrong, I'm not talking about what I kept in my wardrobe, in my drawer, in my music collection, in my garage. No. Inside myself. Have I kept my curiosity? My ability to be moved by a song, to sit and watch a movie without taking my phone and looking at my phone every now and then. Have I kept that? I don't even know that feeling when I walk into my workshop and I just stop for a second and I smell the surroundings, the leather. It makes me feel alive. It makes me feel deeply something that it just takes me back in time, decisions I have made and who I became today because of the decisions that I have made at some point. And those are the things that I'm worried losing, not possessions. No, wonder. Because I honestly believe that the day we will stop being curious, we stop collecting memories. And if we stop collecting memories, think about what kind of story will you have to tell when you will have no memories? What would you talk about it? A little jacket can't be made in hours. A song cannot be written in, I don't know, minutes. It's if you're rushing it, you're never gonna do it. So maybe that's why I love doing things by hand, because I'm creating memories. It's so easy. It's the best conversations, if you're thinking about it, don't happen because someone was in a hurry. They happen because someone slowed down, stopped, and paid attention. And maybe this is what this podcast is asking you to do. Slow down. And just for a little while, breathe. Because today, this moment, you will become a memory. And one day, you will return to it. And when the day comes, I think you will be glad that you have paid attention. I always get this question from people, they always ask me, how and why do I do so many things? Fashion, music, I don't know, cars, motorcycles, photography. How do I still get excited over a new camera or a new synthesizer? And why am I so excited when I get a new motorcycle? And to be honest, I've never seen these things in my life as different passions. To me, they always were different ways of saying pretty much the same thing. Because whenever I'm living my life, I feel and I know that I'm making something that will last. If I am making a jacket, if I'm writing a song, if I'm video recording this episode of this podcast, this will be things that will last. Fashion, by its nature, changes. Music changes. Technology changes. We change. And there is a moment when, actually, because we were talking about the fact that I'm making jackets. Think about the fact that when you're buying a jacket, when I make a jacket, when I make it, I don't think about the person that is going to buy it. Sounds funny, but let me finish. I hope that in 20 years from now, someone will open a closet, will hold that piece, and that thing that I have made will steal a smile from that person. And I've always wanted this to be the kind of work that I am going to do. Not something that gets noticed, but something that somehow will be remembered. And this, I think, in my humble opinion, it could be a great way to just make peace with whatever we do, and to just think about it, that whatever we go through at the moment and whatever we're building at the moment basically will turn into a memory, a good, a bad one day, but a memory for us to remember. And the same thing when I write a song. I never know what that song is going to go and going to do. Maybe it's not going to go anywhere. Maybe it's going to go everywhere. Music doesn't change. I strongly believe that. I think that life does. Life does change, and it changes a lot. And what makes this conversation pretty cool is to acknowledge the fact that every listener and every person that is actually listening to a song will listen to a song in a different way. And I find that captivating, because the song that I listen to today, and it makes me feel good about it, it might be a song that is in exactly the same moment on the other side of the world. Someone that goes through a very, very uncomfortable moment is listening to it, and it's still listening to it. So it's still creating a feeling around it. And maybe that's why I've spent so much of my life chasing details. Not because I'm a perfectionist. Maybe I am. I mean, if you're asking my wife, probably she'll tell you that I really am. It's because details, in my opinion, are a strong sign of respect for the person who one day will hold something that you have made, and whether it's a piece of clothing, a song, or this kind of conversations, that they don't. These conversations will not create a podcast. If they do, I see it more as they create a company. I keep you company, and believe it or not, you keep me company as well too. And I don't know, maybe you driving, maybe you just at home cooking, maybe you are at your 9 to 5 job, maybe you're at the gym, maybe you're just sitting alone with a coffee after a long day. Whatever you are, thank you for letting me be part of it. And at the same time, I will just really share with you how happy this makes me, because if I made this, and this will always remind me one day about this moment, it could become your memory as well too. Because I am not strictly creating a memory for myself. As I am creating it with you, it could be easily your memory as well too. And one day you will be able to remember that you were just sitting on your porch with your coffee, and you had this podcast in your earbuds, and you were just listening to that weird guy from the heart of Tuscany that in the middle of the night was just having a conversation with a younger version of himself. Because that is what the difference is, that we can have our lives full with everything, more than we ever needed. And I don't know if it ever happened to you. You walked into a house where there was so many of so much, and you felt like it was so empty. A small box, a very small box, can contain a little thing, like a very little thing that can just remind you of a lifetime. And I've seen a lot of people hold on to a lot of things, small little things, things that made no sense to the others. I don't know. I I know somebody that refused to throw a leather jacket after almost 50 years of being in the family. And that's because you want to hold on to that memory. And you can't judge somebody that is holding on to something, because you never know what that thing gave to that person. Those things are completely personal. Nobody else can own them. And if they do, they will not mean the same thing to them. Those pieces that we keep, they are always reminding us of who we are, and mostly about who we used to be. And if I think about how much I spent in my life, how much time I've spent to make fashion, music, objects of any kind, the older I get and the more I understand that the most important things we create are not always the things we can physically touch. The moments are so much more important. The time that I spend with my partner sitting on a sofa and watching stupid videos on YouTube, or scrolling down on a phone and laughing to some funny videos with animals, or that incredible moment of, after a whole very long day, coming home, I just got on the floor playing with my dog, and no one can actually understand what that means, because these are the things we keep. And in a way, in a very strange way, those are the things that keep us. Surviving, it's different. It's different for everybody. And there is a point in life when we are trying to find the balance. And I think the balance, it's always found there where memories can help. And when life becomes difficult, when things change, when we feel like we're moving too fast, like too much chaos, if you want to, those memories quietly remind us, and they have a way to say, you were here, you felt this, you loved, and mostly you lived. And I think this is pretty much why I'm sitting here today, because life really moves quickly. Not for me, for every single one of us. And sometimes it moves really quick. And maybe we all need a place where we can just sit down and slow down. And this podcast is that place for me. I enjoy this a lot. And it's a place for stories, for music, for films. It's a place for people. Definitely a place for feelings, for moments that they deserve a different look. Another one, a different one than the one you just had moments ago. And every week, we will together open another door. This is just like an introduction of what the idea of having this podcast was. And we will try every week to remember something. Maybe it will be a song, maybe it will be a movie that we kept watching for like thousands of times. Maybe it will be a person that unknowingly just marked our lives. And because every story, yours or mine, every story starts somewhere, and every little story leaves something behind. And before we finish today, I do want you to think about something. What is that one thing that you have kept for years? What is it? Think about it. That thing that if you lost everything else, you would still want to have. What would that be? Maybe it's small. Maybe it's not. Maybe it's a person. Maybe it's not. Maybe nobody else will understand what you would say, but you will. And that would be enough. Because sometimes the smallest things are the biggest elements of a big story. And they remind us where we came from, and they remind us who we used to be. And sometimes they do remind us of who we still are. And that could be the nice part of this conversation, because starting something new is always strange, like this podcast. You never know where that thing is going to go. And you can prepare, and believe me, I did. It might not look like, but I did. You can plan, you can imagine how people will react. You can imagine. But in the end, every story has to be released to the world. And today, this story begins. When I was younger, I thought that the important things in life are the things that we achieve, the places we have reached, the things we own, the things people could actually see. But the older I get, and the more I believe that the real value of a life is hidden somewhere else. And it is actually hidden in the moments that nobody could see. Nobody else than you. And the conversation, it's about exactly that process. Trying to find the song that hit you at the right time, the person who changed your life without even knowing it, that object that you kept for all these years without knowing why. Those are the things that quietly build who we become. And maybe we don't keep things because we are afraid of letting go. Maybe we keep them because they remind us of what is worth holding onto. The important thing is not to live in the past. The past is gone. The lessons, the emotions, the love, the experiences, they're here. I mean, that moment, the past is gone. But all of the luggage of the past, it's still here. And that's why sometimes it feels very, very heavy, because you have so much to carry. You do. I do. Everybody else does. So when you get into an argument with somebody, just think about that. Maybe that day, the weight on its shoulders, it's a bit too heavy. Because all of these things that we carry with us, they are all part of us. They walk with us. And maybe that's the beauty of the memories at the end of the day. They don't ask us to go backwards. The memories, they always ask us to keep going. And they simply remind us that we have already lived something meaningful. So look around you, and maybe there's something near you right now that is telling your story. Maybe you already found that thing that you kept onto for all these years. And take a moment with that thing, whatever that thing is. Remember what it came from. Remember who you were when that happened. And remember that you doing this now, even if it's part of this conversation or not or anything, one day you will remember about it. And when you will look back at this moment, you will just probably smile, which is a great thing, because you never know when this memory will hit you. It might be in one of those dark days. So smile. Don't take it. Don't take it for granted, because you shouldn't. And if memory can create that, we should just be really, really, really happy that it did. So until next time, take care of the things we keep. Because somehow, at the end of the day, they are telling you stories. Have a very, very nice evening. Cheers.